Okay, welcome everyone. This is the FY26 volunteer orientation training. Thank you all for coming, and we're recording so that people that aren't able to attend will be able to watch this after the fact. We have a small crew tonight, so let's just go around and introduce ourselves. I know we have some new volunteers this year, which is great. I have been saying since I've been here that it takes a village, and that's kind of my unofficial tagline for Martin's Editions. And our volunteers is definitely the best representation of that. It does take a village, and I'm the only full-time employee. Aaron is a part-time employee, and that's it. So we run everything. It's really the volunteers that make the show go. So, but let's start with the council members who are also volunteers. Arthur, you want to introduce yourself? And you're muted, Arthur.
Okay.
There you go.
First, I want to welcome people, but more important than welcoming, I want to thank everybody, including veteran and newcomers to the various committees. It's become a cliche now to say that it takes more than a village to run a village, but it does. And most of the things that happen around here are due to the various committee volunteers, from continuing old things to starting new things. And so everything from running elections to make sure we don't get washed away in floods in the future is something that's being looked at by various committees. So thank everybody, and let's get on with it.
Sounds good. All right, and Alexa, you're our newest council member, so you want to introduce yourself?
Well, you just took my whole speech. I'm Alexa Spencer. I live on Chestnut Street, and yeah, I'm the newest member. And in reality, I had never considered ever, volunteering for the council. But I'm glad that I have it, and I'm on a big learning curve, as some of you can imagine. And I appreciate that we have the council and all of the volunteers that work together. I'm looking forward to these next 2 years. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And Aaron, can you introduce yourself? We're going to talk about ethics tonight as one of our agenda items, and the ethics code does apply to staff as well. So, Aaron, thanks for being here, and can you introduce yourself? And you're muted. There you go.
Okay. I'm the assistant village manager, and I've been with the village for 3 years now. And so I'm in the office daily, except for Wednesdays when I telework. But I will always be glad to help residents with any issues that arise and work closely with Michael to see that communications go out and to work on all issues as they arise. But thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much. Okay, and Ron, you're going to have a chance to talk later, but can you introduce yourself for people that don't know you?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Ron Bolts, village attorney, and I've been working with you since 2006.
Wow.
Great. Was that before or after Arthur?
Before,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for your service. And okay, for the committee volunteers, Lori Mitchell, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Lori Mitchell. I live on Cummings Lane. I am a returning member to the Ethics Committee. And previously, I also served for a couple of years on election and walkability task force.
Yeah, thank you for all your service. Nick, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nick Mitchell. I am with the Stormwater Task Force and working with Mark Yasmin and the team. Nice to see you all.
Thanks for being here. Jack, can you introduce yourself?
I moved to the village in August and met Marty shortly after and am now on the election committee, and I live on Quincy.
Great, welcome. And Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Kolsky. I'm a brand new volunteer on the ethics committee. just wanted to get involved and figured I'd jump in, and I'm representing Shepherd Street.
Right. Shepherd Street is well represented. And thanks to the newest volunteers, we love to see the new faces. So thank you for volunteering. And last but not least, Marty, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and lovely to see everybody tonight. Thanks for putting this session together. And to the new volunteers, welcome aboard. Nick, I think you're my backyard neighbor on Delfield Street. I'm on Chestnut, and look forward to working with all of you. And again, special welcome to Jack Swain, who's new member on the election committee. I've been doing elections for almost 50 years now, since I was a teenager, but not in Martin's Additions that whole time. So anyway, it's a pleasure to see you all and look forward to seeing Ron. Thank you again for all your good advice on elections and other issues.
Thank you.
Okay, with the introductions of everyone that's here so far, that's great. And hopefully we'll have some opportunities to network amongst ourselves and work, within our own committees, but also across committees and across the village. So it's good for everyone to get to know everybody. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Lori, and I'm going to share the screen. We're going to talk about ethics, and then we're going to go to Ron to talk about the Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act. And then I'm going to take over at the very end to talk about the committee guidelines with Arthur's help, hopefully. And then I have a communications and meeting planning SOP that I want to show you all. But to start with, Lori, you can take it away.
Okay, and you're going to put the slides up, Michael?
Yes, one second. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right. Okay, that's not slide number. That's not the first slide, but
There you go.
there we go. Thank you. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Lori Mitchell here tonight on behalf of the Ethics Committee. I'm joined by our newest member who you just met, Rachel Kolsky. Alex Geskier is also a member, but he couldn't be here tonight due to a last-minute work conflict. Now, I know ethics can sound like a somewhat dry topic, something tucked away in the village code somewhere, but it's actually about something much bigger, public trust. Trust is how we make decisions. Trust that we're putting the public good ahead of personal interest. Of course, trust doesn't just depend on good intentions. It depends on a fair process. That's why the village code sets clear guidelines for the establishment of an ethics committee. Under the code, the ethics committee is made up of 3 members. Like other committees, they're appointed by the council. But importantly, ethics committee members cannot concurrently serve on the council or election committee. This separation keeps us independent, and that independence gives the process credibility. We serve 2-year staggered terms, so not everyone rotates off at once. That continuity keeps our institutional memory alive. The lessons from past issues shape today's standards. So what do we actually do? 2 main things. First, we provide advisory opinions. Basically, we help officials figure out what's ethical according to the code before there's a problem. Second, we make determinations when questions or concerns about ethical compliance arise. But here's something important. We don't go looking for complaints. Our role isn't to play ethics watchdog. We're here to guide, to clarify, and to make sure everyone serving the village has the tools to do the right thing according to the code. Ultimately, the Ethics Committee exists to protect the integrity of the village and to protect the trust our neighbors place in the people who serve them. Okay, next slide, please, Michael. Now, let's talk about Chapter 4 of the Village Ordinances, the heart of our ethics code. At its core, Chapter 4 is built on one powerful idea. Public service is public trust. With this in mind, it sets out 2 expectations for every village official, values we want in all of our leaders. First, impartiality. Treat everyone fairly. Make decisions based on facts and what's best for the community, not on personal preferences or politics. Second, avoid conflicts of interest. Make sure personal relationships or financial interests never influence your official actions. These standards apply to everyone here tonight: council members, committee members, the tree supervisor, village employees, anyone making decisions for the community. Because when everyone plays by the same clear, fair rules, something powerful happens. People trust the process. And that trust is what keeps small communities like ours strong and united. Next slide, please, Michael. As you already know, before any village official begins their duties, they take two important steps, almost like making a promise to the community. Step one, they file a contrast of interest form. This means taking a moment to look at your own world, your job, your business connections, your family ties, and asking, could any of these overlap with my village role? It's about being honest and transparent from day one. Step two, take the oath of office, which includes the duty of impartiality. That oath isn't just a formality. It's a personal commitment to make decisions fairly, objectively, and always in the public's best interest. And here's the key. It's not just a one-time promise. Life changes, new jobs, new connections, and if something arises that might even appear to create a conflict, you should update your disclosure before acting on a related issue. This ongoing responsibility is what keeps the system transparent and shows residents that their leaders are acting with integrity every single day. Next slide, please, Michael. Let's talk about what the code calls private interests or relationship. It's a simple idea with big implications. It means any connection, business, financial, or employment related that could give you or your family a financial benefit directly or indirectly. Sometimes it's obvious. You own a company that bids on a village contract, but sometimes it's subtle. Maybe your child works for the contractor. The question is, could a reasonable person believe I might benefit financially from this decision? If the answer is yes, or even if the answer is maybe, it's something to disclose. Now also let's talk about gifts. Officials can't accept gifts from anyone doing business with the village or whose interests could be influenced by village decisions. There's one narrow exception: unsolicited gifts under 50, given purely for personal or social reasons. But anything connected to village business, off limits. This goal isn't rigidity, it's integrity, because when the public sees that their leaders aren't swayed by perks or favors, it strengthens trust in every decision we make. And that's really what this is all about: building a culture of integrity, transparency, and trust, one decision at a time. Next slide, please, Michael. Picture this. You're sitting on the village council. A decision lands on your desk, one that affects your neighbors, your community, maybe even people you see at the grocery store every day. At that moment, what guides you? Impartiality. It means making decisions based on facts and fairness, not on who you know, how you feel, or what benefits you personally. Our village code is clear. Officials must act without favoritism, prejudice, or personal bias. It's not always easy because we're human, but it's the cornerstone of ethical government. And it what makes people believe their leaders are acting for them, for the public good. Next slide, please, Michael. Now, what happens when that trust is tested? Suppose you realize that a decision you're about to make could affect your business you're connected to or that of a family member. The ethics code gives you two options. Option one, step back, disqualify yourself from the decision. Say, this isn't my decision to make. That's not weakness, it's integrity in action. Option 2, seek guidance, work with the council, the ethics committee for an advisory opinion. Bring the issue into the open and get clarity, because when in doubt, transparency is your strongest shield. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have an ethical dilemma here. This is the first time I've done this only on Zoom, so I'm just going to invite people. I'll introduce the scenario and I'll invite people just to speak, because I can't call on people. I can't see you with the slides up. But here we go. Here's a real world scenario. In February, the Village Council awarded a catering contract to Platinum Plates, chosen after a fair competitive process. Everything was above board. A month later, Council Member Jackson calls that same company. He's planning his parents' anniversary dinner. The caterer offers a 30% discount worth about $300. What, if any, impartiality or conflict of interest concerns are raised by this scenario? And what should Councilmember Jackson do about the planned dinner? Someone want to weigh in here? Can you see anyone, Michael, to call on anyone? I don't know if I can put the gallery view. Oh, I can see. I'm just switching to gallery view. Anyone want to raise their hands? I can see everyone. I can call on someone if they don't.
I think Council Member Jackson should notify everyone or decline the discount.
Decline the discount, notify disclose it on, he can fill out a new conflict of interest form and disclose it, decline the discount. Good answer. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
It's worth more than $50, so that's the first thing I noticed. And you know, situations like this can happen. You know, I do have a lot of residents asking for you know, like our arborist information, because they have a private tree they want, you know, to be addressed. So, you know, if that arborist wanted to be on my good side because their contract's coming up, you know, I could imagine a situation like that where they would try to offer a discount to someone that might be able to, you know, sway favor. So this is something to watch out for.
Yeah, I agree. And I hadn't really thought about the $50, but that's a good point, Michael. So, Alexa, did you have your hand up? Or were you just?
No, I was just listening to the gift issue.
You're just listening. Okay. Well, I know I don't have a lot of time tonight, but let me just say, you know, maybe it's just kindness, but from the outside, it could seem like a reward for awarding that contract. You know, that's the danger. Sometimes it's just the appearance of bias or conflict that can be as damaging as the actual bias. But good job, everyone. Thanks for weighing in. We can just move to the last slide here. And so I'm just going to wrap it up. Some key takeaways here. Acting with impartiality in a conflict of interest isn't just a rule, it's a promise that every decision we make will put the public first. When residents believe their government is fair, they engage, they participate, they trust, and that trust is fragile. It takes years to build and only seconds to lose. As public officials, employees, and community leaders, our responsibility is to protect that trust every single day. So if something ever feels ethically uncertain, don't ignore it. That's what the council and that's what the ethics committee is here for, to guide, to support, to help you make the right call. Because impartiality isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing fairness again and again, even when it's hard. When we do that, we don't just follow the code, we honor the community that trusted us to lead. Now, I think I might have a couple of minutes if anyone has any questions. Any questions? Yep. So, great. We're all good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. I'm always happy to start with ethics. That's a value of mine to start with ethics. So I'm glad we're starting this volunteer year with that. Thank you very much. And with that, I will hand it off to Ron.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So I just wanted to let everybody know about 2 state laws that committee members need to be aware of. So you might not know Martin's Additions is a municipal corporation. And what does that mean? We're a local government established according to the Home Rule amendments to the Maryland Constitution. In 1956, the Constitution of Maryland was amended to allow local governments, including the village. As such, the village is a political subdivision of the state and has to abide by certain state laws as a result. And 2 important laws for committee members to be aware of are the Open Meetings Act and the Public Information Act. These are both sunshine laws, which provide that the public, the residents of Martin's Additions, generally have a right to participate and observe business in action. So under the Open Meetings Act, if the village council or a committee is having a meeting, the Open Meetings Act provides the public has to be aware of that meeting. Notice has to be issued of when the meeting is taking place, and the public has to be invited to attend. Now, they don't have a right to participate in your meetings, but they do have the right to come and observe. And if committees want, they can take comments and questions from people who are in attendance, but not obligated to do so. Now, that requirement to provide notice and invite the public only applies if a meeting is taking place. And under the Open Meetings Act, a meeting only takes place if there's a quorum, a majority of the committee present discussing a covered function, something that is important village business. A quorum, as I said, is a majority. So let's say you have 5 people on your committee. If there's 3 of you together talking about an item of official business, then a meeting is taking place. But again, you have to be discussing something important, what the Act defines as a covered function. Covered functions are policy making, also known as legislative, or advisory, which is forming a recommendation to give to another body. So if a committee is meeting to discuss a recommendation to give to the village council, that's an advisory function. That's mostly what committees do. Or quasi-legislative, which we don't have to worry about here in this context. Mostly what the committees are going to be doing is administrative. Now, if you're engaged in an administrative discussion, the Act does not apply. So let me give you some examples of what an administrative function is. I know we have 2 members of the Ethics Committee here and 2 from elections, 1 from stormwater. So, with respect to ethics, the code provides certain duties that the Ethics Committee has, including resolving complaints that come in, issuing advisory opinions, as Lori said. So when the committee's engaged in those functions, they're administering the existing Martin's Additions code. So that's administrative. They don't have to meet to do that. Similarly, when the Ethics Committee is reviewing the voter roll or counting ballots, the Elections Board is administering existing election rules, and you don't have to meet and open and announce in that instance. The Stormwater Committee, the Social Committee, and our other standing and ad hoc committees that don't have statutory duties like elections and ethics. Mostly what you're doing is advisory. So, most of your meetings are going to need to be open. The stormwater, for example, your primary function is to study stormwater drainage issues in the village and come up with recommendations to give to the village council on how to amend our code, what infrastructure to build, etc. So mostly what you're doing is advisory. The social committee, not so much. Mostly what they're doing is planning and executing the village's budgeted expenses for social events. So, those types of meetings are administrative and wouldn't need to be open. If a meeting does need to be open under the act, in addition to giving the public notice, you have to publish an agenda and you have to produce minutes. And the minutes generally need to be reviewed and approved on the same cycle as you meet. So the village council meets monthly, they approve their minutes monthly. If you need help preparing an agenda, preparing minutes, and Michael and Aaron are available for that. And I think Michael always helps with the issuance of the notices, because obviously he's got the capability to do that at the village office. Sometimes, although very rarely, you might want to meet in closed session because you're discussing something confidential or sensitive. So the Open Meetings Act does provide 15 exceptions for when you can meet in closed session, including getting legal advice. So if one of those 15 exceptions apply, you can meet in closed session. And committees aren't going to do that very often, if ever. But in order to do that, you got to be aware there's a process to follow. There's a form you have to fill out called a statement for closing a meeting. And at least one member of the committee has to have had closed meeting training offered by the state of Maryland. Michael can share that link with you. There's a half an hour or hour-long course you can take online and print out a certificate afterwards and show everybody, I've had Open Meetings Act training. So I'd recommend everybody get it, even though only one member has it. It's nice to go through it so that everybody's aware of what's going on. And that way, if your one designee is absent, you can still meet in closed session if everybody's had that training. Any questions on Open Meetings Act before I move to public information? I would say that our newer members, Rachel and Jack, you don't have anything to worry about because Lori and Marty know this stuff very well. You can always lean on them. Public Information Act, our other sunshine law, that provides that documents that are received by public bodies or generated, produced by public bodies, are public in nature and should be available to residents and other members of the public to inspect when they wish. So you have to be mindful of that, because the law says we all have a duty to preserve those types of records. We cannot destroy them except in accordance with our document retention schedule. Personal notes are not public records, but if you compile a written report, that's going to be public, needs to be maintained. And the tricky thing is emails. So emails are deemed public records when they're on official village business, and there's a duty to preserve those. So if you're using an official email produced by Michael and Aaron, you're okay, because those emails are going to be saved on our server. But sometimes people want to use their personal emails, and if you do, just be aware that there is a duty to preserve those as well. So if you are using a personal email, I would say drag and drop it into a village folder and provide that folder to the village upon your end of service. But I would recommend just using the village email address, because then we don't have to worry about whether the duty to preserve those records is being implemented. And Michael, I may have misspoken. Have you actually said it's mandatory? It might even be mandatory that you use the official email. I know we have a unwritten policy. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah. My recommendation is to copy your email for everything. So some of the committees have a committee email address, and I
Okay.
think they're pretty good at copying that email. So that's all
Okay.
that's required if it's copied. If you
Yeah.
do not have an email, then copying me is also a way to do that. So
That
you
puts it
all
on the
just
server.
copy.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Michael.
And Ron, can you talk about text messages as well?
Yes.
Subject.
Yeah. So because you have a duty to preserve records that you produce, we recommend against using texting for official village business because text can't readily be saved. Now, under the Public Information Act, records are only those that are deemed of importance because of the significance of the substance. So if you want to text each other to say, hey, are we meeting tonight? What sandwiches should I bring? That type of stuff does not need to be preserved. Or, who's available for a meeting on such and such a date. You don't need to preserve those communications. But, if you're emailing someone saying, I observed stormwater concern on dead end Delfield, and I'd like us to take a closer look at it. Something like that does have more weight and needs to be preserved. It has to be preserved in accordance with the Martin's Editions document retention schedule approved by the state archivist, which says we can delete emails no longer needed for business after 1 year. So Michael can take care of that because he's got everything on the server, but it might be important for you to know, just sometimes people will wonder, I'm no longer on the committee or board. What do I do with all these emails on my computer? Do I have to keep them? And no, after 1 year, they can be deleted. I also want to mention on the subject of emails, going back to the Open Meetings Act. So the Open Meetings Compliance Board has said to meet, that can happen in different ways. A meeting can be in person, can be over Zoom, over the telephone, and can even be by email, which is somewhat surprising. In the 90s, the Attorney General had said emails aren't meetings because we were using dial-up, and sending an email was like putting a letter in the mail. Someone might not read it until the next day because some people just would only log in, once or twice a week. But now that everyone's carrying out smartphones, the Attorney General's office says, well, sending an email is almost the same as being in a chat room now because emails can be read simultaneously, and the response can only be seconds behind. And so the Meetings Compliance Board says if you have a string of emails and replies, it's almost like you're all in a room together. And so a meeting can be created by emails. So you have to be careful with emails. We have one decision of the Meetings Compliance Board that said 15 communications back and forth over a 3-day period was enough to constitute a meeting. So it's not to say you can't email each other, but just be mindful of that rule. And I like to suggest to people that if you want to share stuff by email, go for it, but just sign off on the email with something like, hey, I just want to share this information. We can discuss it in detail at our next meeting. If you have any questions, just reply to me individually without replying to all. And then you cannot, though, compile individual responses and forward them to everybody and create what's known as a rolling quorum. But yeah, that's easy to get tripped up on, but easy to avoid as well if you use that type of disclaimer or instruction at the end of the email. So that's all I wanted to cover. Does anyone have any questions about either of those two sunshine laws? All right, this is too easy.
No questions for Ron?
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ron. And you can actually go home. Well, you're
Okay.
already.
All right. Well, can I make one comment on Lori's hypothetical?
Hmm.
Just because I want to say something else. Also, that council member should avoid using the prestige of office when soliciting services. So instead of saying, hey, I'm a council member of Martin's Editions, can you give me a quote? They got to make sure to just do it in an individual capacity and not suggest they're doing it as a council member. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good
Appreciate it.
night. Good night, Ron. Thank you.
Okay, with the important stuff of ethics, open meetings, and public information, the sunshine laws out of the way. Now we're going to get to the fun stuff, committee guidelines. I'm going to share my screen again. And you're all going to see
Recorded.
my garden. And I want to show you something on the website. Everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Coming
great.
through.
This is the village website, new and approved. Under governance, you'll see committees, and you'll see all your committees there. I'm sure you're all familiar with your websites, but if you just click on committees itself, there's a little cover page here, which includes the links to your individual committees, but also includes this committee guidelines document we're going to talk about next. And it also includes the link that I just dropped in the chat, which is the open meetings training through the University of Maryland. I encourage, again, everyone to take that, but at least one person from your committee should take that to be able to watch out for your yourself and your committee mates. So now we're going to jump into the guidelines. This was put together. Arthur, do you remember when this was put together? Maybe it's
Yeah, people have been asking for it, particularly Marty and a number of other people for years. And I said, okay, let me see if I can put it together. So I went and looked at what many of our neighboring communities were doing, copied all those out, copied and pasted together. And Elizabeth Goldberg took a look at my draft. She says, this is awful. Things aren't linked together. They're in all different kinds of places. And she had a hand in doing a beautiful editing job on it. And then, other people put their hands in. So that's where it came from.
Mhm. And one thing I want to note here is the ad hoc committee is the same thing as a task force for our purposes. That's something that the council establishes for a temporary time period to focus on a limited objectives or a specific issue like stormwater.
Yeah.
So that's basically the same thing there. But otherwise, I think this is still up to date and a really good document for you all to refer to. It'll talks about your mission statement. If you're not sure what your mission statement is, you should ask the council what your mission is and the scope of work. Yeah, explains how appointments work, swearing in and training, which is what we're doing tonight. There's the link to the Maryland thing again. So there's a lot of really good information in here about how operations works, about how your meetings work. Arthur, was there anything else you wanted to say about this?
Yeah, this whole procedure has kind of evolved. There's virtually nothing written in the code or the charter that says how this should go. Uh, there's no distinctions in any of those official documents about what a committee is, what a task force is, whether there should be a liaison committee, council liaison. That all kind of evolved in a very ad hoc manner. And so this document tried to pull that together. So it's as I say, a living document. As things change, we ought to be changing what is written up here. But so far, it's worked out pretty well for the last couple of years.
And the other thing I'll mention is you all have a liaison to your committee. So if you don't know who that is on the council, figure that out. It's on the website. And if you have any questions, that's your first contact. And then as always, myself and Aaron are always, one of us are always in the office. So you can always just ask one of us if you have any questions about how things are working or when your next meeting is or all of that type of stuff. We're here to help. So that's the committee guidelines, and that's there if you ever need it to refer to it. And then the last thing I want to show you all today is this SOP I put together last year. SOP standing for Standard Operating Procedure. These are for communications and meeting planning for the committees because I got a lot of repeat questions, so I figured I would just put it out in a document. If everything worked in a perfect world, this is how it would be. Scheduling your meetings, that needs to happen through me. Sometimes the committees, tell each other when they want to meet next, but they never tell me. And then it doesn't make it in the calendar. It doesn't make it, the public notice doesn't get posted in time. And then you can't have a public meeting. There's other things that happen, like sometimes there will be 3 different committees all trying to meet on the same night. So I have to, rock, paper, scissors, who gets it? So early and often communicate with me for your public meetings. And the other thing I'm recommending this year is this last sentence in this first point is we're recommending you hold your meetings monthly and on the same day each month. That makes it really easy. Like the elections committee, I think it just said first Monday of the month. That's perfect. I love that. I can put that on this calendar for the rest of the year, and the week before I'll call Marty and be like, all right, where's your agenda? So that's really helpful. So if all the committees would kind of think ahead and start planning ahead with me, that's very helpful. The second thing I wanted to talk about here is providing documents to the village. Um, all the documents for your meetings or for the council meetings, if you're presenting a presentation or a monthly report to the council, those need to be to me a week before that meeting happens. That is super helpful because it takes quite a while for me to put together the packets, especially for the council meetings. Sometimes those packets are 50 pages. The December packet, I can tell you right now, is going to be over 100 pages. So if you're giving me a 3-page report, or if you're giving me 3 different pages that are separated, I need to make sure they're in order. I need to make sure they're linked. I need to make sure that they have page numbers. I need to make sure that they're printed in order. So it takes a lot of work. Aaron and I spend the entire week of the council meetings preparing those packets. It takes a lot. So I'm asking for your help. Please provide everything to me a week ahead of time in its final form, whether if it's approved by your committee a week before, please. And then the last thing is official communications. This came up a lot this last year with the Anti-Semitism Awareness Committee. Just because they had a lot of, kind of last minute ditch effort, like we need everyone to know about this as soon as possible. That stresses me out when there's last minute communications. So I'm also asking for communications a week before they need to go out, even notices for your meetings, all of those types of things. I need to know about those a week in advance. That way I have a chance to run them by the council to make sure they're okay. That way I have the ability to, put it into constant contact and schedule it in advance. Sometimes I'm out, sometimes Aaron's out. So again, a week is super helpful. And then just as a reminder, we do have multiple communication channels. So if I get things in a timely manner, I can kind of tell you, actually, I think this is better in the newsletter versus the wrap up. The wrap up, I really want it to be things that are coming up in the next week. That's kind of short term, quick hit. And we can always do standalone emails, and we do have a texting system now, which we haven't used that much of. I'm going to start using it a lot more, I think, because that is the fastest way to communicate things with people. And that's a new tool that I want to get familiar with and get our residents to give me their cell phone numbers. So that's my ask of you all from the village office. Is there any questions about any of this or any of the committee guidelines or anything from tonight, actually? Quiet group tonight. No questions? You all think you can do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Definitely.
great. Well, thank you so much then. That concludes our meeting, unless there's any questions or final
Thank you,
comments.
everyone.